So my name is Julie Stolyarchuk. Most of what I do is I teach high levels, C2 and above usually, and I'm also the teacher and co-author of several courses on methodology, some of which Dmitry has probably mentioned. One that's coming up is teaching adults that we're starting in February together with Maureen McGarvey. And I also run several methodology courses in the Polina Kordic School of English. I'm also the co-author of Reinventing Your Continuing Professional Development Journey, a set of learning tools for English teachers. I'm so happy I have the name of that book up on the screen. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So ultimately, what I would like you to know about me is that I am passionate about teacher development and that I also work only with groups. So that's why today I am here to talk to you about group dynamics. So I've already asked you to look at the screen and notice the people around you. And I would just like to reiterate that you are such a great crowd. So today you are here as a collection of individuals, not unlike your students who come to your class on the 1st of September or at the beginning of your course. And yet by the end of the course, you find friendships being formed. And in some instances, you'll see that the group performs more effectively as a team than perhaps they did when they were on their own. And so the question is, how does this magic happen? And of course, this magic has been well documented and described. Back in 1965, American researcher of psychology Bruce Tuckman came up with a model where he described 5 stages of group formation. Now, this applies not only to the classroom, but to any kind of team. So I'll be taking you through these 5 stages. And as I do, think of your own experience of being in a group and see if maybe this matches your experience. Now, all of his stages rhyme, which is really cute. So the first stage that he describes is called forming. There we go. This is when a group first comes together as a recognizable unit. This is when participants don't necessarily know each other well. They might not have very much in common. And at this stage, they usually avoid doing or saying anything controversial, because after all, we are all wired with a desire to belong. And we don't want to feel or to be ostracized by the group that we are trying to join. That's the forming stage. Gradually, however, this harmony gives way to a second stage, and that is storming. This is when participants feel more comfortable to disagree with each other and do this more openly. This is a stage when they start testing each other's limits, and very often they start challenging the authority of the teacher because they're trying to work out what their position in this group is, what their position in this kind of hierarchy is. I'm not saying this happens very consciously. This might be very much an unconscious process, and yet. So the point I'm trying to make is, if this happens in your group, if you see that there's some kind of maybe disagreement, maybe conflict or storming going on, this is a natural stage for groups to go through. And you can look at it as a sign of progress in that your group will only become stronger for having gone through this stage. Ultimately, the good news is there will come a calm after the storm. The next stage is called norming, and this is when things get settled and there is a certain degree of cohesion that emerges between the participants. This cohesion is usually based on some kind of shared norms, some shared goals of the group. And hopefully, this norming stage will lead to a greater sense of openness among participants. So now they are still openly disagreeing with each other, but they are finding ways around this disagreement. There is one stage that not all groups reach, but some teams, some groups reach the performing stage. They become highly functional teams That's when the group is really highly motivated, cohesive, interdependent, to the point where the teacher can actually take a step back and take on the role of a facilitator more than an actual teacher, as it were. Again, not every group gets to that point. That's okay. You know, as long as the storm has passed, as long as they've come to a sort of normalized stage, that's all good. And finally, all good things must come to an end. So when the group reaches the end of the course, it's time to say goodbye. And although the participants may keep engaging with one another in one way or another, but this group, as this recognized unit, will cease to exist. And this will, of course, give place to new developments. So this is Bruce Tuckman's stages of group formation. It'll be interesting to know whether this matches your experience or not. The question that remains with all of this is, so if this is a well-documented process, and we know that this happens with pretty much every group, what does the teacher have to do in all of this? What role is reserved for us? And when I went to university, we all had to write an essay on what being a good teacher is. And, you know, these essays were full of all of these possible roles that teachers could take on. Students would write that a teacher is a source of knowledge, the one who will get you through college, a facilitator, one who remembers your favorite figure skater, a role model, someone who will be fair and not coddle, a researcher, someone who provides nurture, a mentor, an actor, an energizer, an organizer. Tell me, what in your opinion, in your experience, do you find the role of a teacher to be? Ultimately, when we are in the classroom with a group of students, one big role of ours is to create an environment that is conducive to learning. By the way, that's one of my favorite words in English, so conducive to learning. And this is something that I want to address today. So if you would like to explore ways of making your classes more valuable, a more valuable experience for your learners, you're very welcome to keep listening on. So how do we as teachers make sure that our classrooms are places where learning actually happens? One of the things that people often say, so I see you saying encourager, supporter. So a commonly held belief is that teachers should work to motivate the learners. I'm sure you've all heard that or expressed this idea as well. However, at the risk of getting you up in arms, I'm going to say that motivation is not enough. There is another term that's become increasingly prevalent. Do you know what's taking the place of motivation? Something that's bigger than motivation that teachers talk about and write about quite often. The word is indeed engagement. We need to see that learners are not just motivated in their head, because someone might have a very good reason for learning, but this does not necessarily mean that they are going to be tuned in to what they are doing in class. And we really want those connections to be made. How do we do that? I'm going to be sharing more and more research with you today. Now, the first bit of research was 1965. We're moving 20 years into that future, 1985, where his name is Edward Deci and Richard Ryan proposed something called the self-determination theory. So we know from this research, it's been widely accepted, that people are constantly trying to balance three psychological needs. The first one was what Natasha's talk was about. The first thing that any person is looking for, especially in a group, is autonomy. People want to feel like something depends on them. They want to feel that they are in control of their actions, that what they do or say has some kind of impact, and they can make their decisions independently. The second component, the second factor, is competence. We want to feel capable We want to feel accomplished. We want to feel like we have some knowledge, we have some skill. And then the third point is relatedness. This is our need to feel a sense of belonging, to feel connection to other people. And when these three needs are met, we get high levels of motivation and engagement. Now, of these three, which do you think is the biggest predictor of student achievement? And most of you are saying something that aligns with further research. Okay, now the research comes from 2017. There was a meta-analysis conducted by several more researchers of psychology, and they found that up to 33% of student achievement can be explained by peer relationships. Let that sink in. This is massive. What this means for us as teachers is that we need to focus not only on the rapport that we as teachers have with our learners, but very much on the rapport that our learners have with one another, because that is going to predict their success. Now, how do we do that? How do we foster these positive peer relationships in the classroom? I'm going to share several things that you probably already do. But again, we're just bringing more of a theoretical basis to what you're already doing. I'll share some classroom practices from my own experience. Now, remember the first thing I asked you to do was kind of look at your screen, notice the people around you, and also learn the name of the person next to you. It is crucial, but not only for you as the teacher to know the names of your learners, but also for them to know each other's names. Because when we think of people, like if you think of the people in your city, we tend to imagine people as a sort of mass, right? So, but once you know a person's name, it's so much more difficult to disregard that person. It's so much more difficult to kind of make them part of this faceless mass of people. So it's super important for them to learn each other's names. Secondly, creating a shared space. In a physical classroom, this is, of course, going to be the classroom in which they come together in to have their lessons. In an online setting, these are not only the Zoom classes that we hold, but for example, in the Polina Cordic School, we have a VK group and VK chats for students to interact with each other in. On the Teaching Adults course that we have at the Dimitri Nikitin School, we have a Telegram chat for participants. It's really important for them to see each other outside of the class, to be able to talk to one another. Number 3 is rules, and you're probably familiar with the practice of putting together a classroom contract. This is a popular activity to be done at the beginning of a course where some teachers actually dedicate part of a lesson to it, where they'll offer students to contribute to a list of rules that they believe that the class should follow. And then students, this also contributes to their autonomy, can actually sign this. And sometimes this contract is added to their portfolio. It's a great practice. It helps at the forming stage of group formation because it creates some predictability in the group. We don't do this in class at the Polina Cordic School, but what we do is we'll put a post in the VK group and invite participants to contribute in the comment section, which also helps them feel that they are part of it, they are contributing to these shared rules, and also we encourage them to like the rules written by other participants, and to like these rules in agreement with them. Then, of course, group work, any kind of pair work, any kind of work in small groups that you offer in your classrooms. Remember, this is not you being lazy. It's not just an opportunity for a teacher to have a 30-second breather in the middle of a class. Group work is crucial for forming these connections, the more they are in touch with one another. And I know that Dimitri has probably talked to you about this, about how if you like someone, spending more time with them makes you like them more. And if you don't like someone, spending more time with them will make you dislike them less. Right? So that's also great for group cohesion. The study buddy system is something that I can't get enough of. It's something that we encourage to all of our students to get. We find that people who have found, and students who have found study buddies, and a study buddy is someone who's trying to reach similar aims to yours, maybe a person on the same course as you, with whom you agree to meet regularly outside of class. There are many things you can do together. Do the workbook together, practice exam speaking if it's an exam course, have a speaking club together. There are a number of things you can do. And we have found that people who have found study buddies on the course report the greatest satisfaction about the course, because that's where the value truly lies, in meeting like-minded individuals. And finally, as I've already mentioned, it's a good idea to involve learners in some sort of extracurricular activities. If you want to organize something for them, great. But even just encouraging them to meet outside of class, like, hey, you two live in the same city, why don't you go have a coffee? Or, oh, you and your study buddy can actually meet in person, why not? This can also work wonders. These are simple things, yet I believe they are very profound for promoting group cohesiveness. And finally, a little metaphor from one of the books that I've drawn heavily on. It's Engaging Language Learners in Contemporary Classrooms by Sarah Mercer and Zoltan Dernier. For a good team spirit, make tea. And so in this, she's a big fan of acronyms, so there are very many acronyms in this book. So here, T stands for trust, empathy, and acceptance. These are ultimately the things that our learners are going to be looking for in their classrooms, and something that will positively contribute to their success. These are the books that I've drawn on. I highly recommend them. Again, I'm sure you'll get the presentation after this conference to look through again, or you can pause the recording if you're watching the recording. And all I have left to say is thank you, and let's stay in touch. You can find information about my upcoming courses and all sorts of fun stuff if you follow this link. Thank you so much.